for prairie people, the real life version of dying and going to heaven is to move to BC.
I got one prairie guy that I want to ask that question to. Marty, up north, when you die and go to heaven, where are you gonna end up? You're gonna end up.
If you close my eyes in most parts of British Columbia and I open my eyes, I would think I'm in heaven. I agree. I mean, your mountains are as beautiful as mine, the water, everything. It's gorgeous. But then once people started talking and I started watching the news and then maybe I saw the price of gasoline over the horizon, then I'd be like, no, I'm not in heaven. I know exactly where I am. So what's the context? Why did she say that? I don't even understand.
I don't know what the
context.
context.
In your neck of the woods?
Yeah, well, she was in Victoria, the wokest town in all of Canada. She was there showing off an apartment building that apparently, just the numbers from it, because this is supposed to be about affordable housing and bringing people affordable housing. Well, it turns out that like essentially a bachelor's no bedroom place is like something like $1,600 a month. And this is without utilities or any of that stuff, right? You want to get like a 3-bedroom place in that building, you're talking like $3,600. Yeah, right. That's the affordable housing that they're bringing to Canada.
I saw that clip. I didn't pay too. I mean, I laughed. I responded to it with a couple of my own videos, but I was trying to think, like, is she justifying why they're not stopping in Alberta? We don't need to stop in Alberta because nobody wants to live in Alberta. We're coming to BC because everybody wants to move to BC. I mean, and speaking of nobody wanting to stop in Alberta, I spent my morning trying to find, not all my morning, but I tried to chase down Justin Trudeau. Trudeau came to Alberta. It was a rare trip to Alberta, but Trudeau came to Alberta. But boy, he came in, he disappeared, made the weirdest press release conference, and then Danielle had a chat with Danielle, and then Danielle made her press release, and then off he went.
And then that was it.
It was a bizarre day.
It was gone.
Yeah.
It was done. It was over. Nobody saw him, as if he was never there.
No, I chat. They publish. Well, they publish his itinerary, right? They always do. They publish the prime minister's itinerary, but lately they're not publishing it days in advance. So today's itinerary was published yesterday at about 3. So I didn't find out until very last minute last night that he's coming to town. So I decided to see if I could go find him. So I checked out the common spots based on the itinerary of where he might be, and I never saw him. Key and Bexy found Danielle Smith because Trudeau and Danielle had a quick chat, but that was private between them. And then Trudeau took off, did another engagement, and then Danielle flew up north to Edmonton to the Ledge, and then she did a press conference from there. So kudos to Keen. He found Danielle, and Danielle gave a little clip. Yeah.
Well, I've got the clip here if we could play this here.
How did the meeting go?
Sure.
I would say we focused on areas where I think we do have some common ground. As you know, I've been trying to get the federal government aligned to our 2050 target to be carbon neutral. And we've had some good projects like Air Products and the Dow Chemical. Those are net zero projects. We're working together on Heidelberg, which would be net zero cement. We still have some issues. We're waiting to see the budget, whether there is some clarity around the investment tax credit for the Pathways project, and if there's support for a national Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, similar to what we have, so that we can assist in getting the Trans Mountain Pipeline into private hands and Indigenous hands. And then we also have a massive opportunity for export of ammonia to South Korea and Japan. And I just wanted to make sure that we don't lose that opportunity. We need to see a signal from the federal government that they're going to be supportive of that. And I also told him it would be a political win if he paused the increase in the carbon tax on April 1st.
Did he sound open to that?
I guess I'll let actions decide that. We'll find out in a couple of weeks whether or not he was persuaded by it.
Pierre Poilievre is calling on Canadians to protest outside MP's office. What do you think of that?
Well, I'd have to say, we've got 7 premiers now that have all asked for a pause. And there's a reason for that, is that I think the Parliamentary Budget Office found that regardless of the rebates, we're still paying more in the tax than any of us are getting back in the rebates. People know that, they feel it. they're also seeing that that's having an impact on inflation. And inflation is one of the reasons the Bank of Canada says that we can't see a reduction in interest rates, which is hurting people when they go to renew their mortgage. So I do think it would be a political win to say we're accomplishing enough with the tax at $60 per ton. We don't need to increase it anymore at this time. We have to be addressing affordability issues. So we'll see if whether it's the protests, whether it's the opposition leader, or whether it's the premiers weighing in on this will make a difference.
Well, see if it does make any difference. Now, I mean, Trudeau is reckoning himself a bit of a hero at this moment.
Well, I mean, following that, so they had their private meeting, and then Trudeau was rushed away to make an announcement around dental care for seniors. And I think he went to the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology to do that announcement, which is a weird place to do it. And but then the whole topic when he did his whole press conference, the whole topic was about the carbon tax, and will he give would he consider pausing it? And he's doubling down on it. I mean, he's doubling down on it. He's basically saying, actually, he had a funny interview. He's like, it's not my job to be popular. I'm like, well, you're doing a good job at it. And in that case,
that's what I was getting at. He reckons himself a bit of a hero of the planet. This is what he had to say.
But my job is not to be popular. My job, although it helps, my job is to do the right things for Canada now, and do the right things for Canadians a generation from now.
Despite democracy, like forget democracy, to forget what the people of Canada want, he's gonna do the things he was not elected to do.
I mean, yeah, like I'm protecting future generations by doing what, dude? By like a Canadian born 30 years from now will be born into an incredible amount of debt. Like he's not protecting future generations with some of the things. I guess he's saying, well, it's irrelevant if you're born on a scorched planet or whatever. This whole narrative of like that we're in the battle of the century and we have to do everything. We've talked about this.
Yeah, we've talked about it at length, and it's an argument that even people who go along with. So say for example, Bjorn Lornberg, he's a guy he agrees with the official narrative. He agrees with that, but he still says, no, this is the wrong approach. This is why would we put ourselves in national debt and squalor, and why would we do all of that when we can have a technological solution out of this and build our industry around it? Like this is something we can absolutely do. And Trudeau's going against that concept. He's going completely in the concept of let's just squander everything so we can have a new type of society.
No, it's like what's the certain outcome if we spend ourselves into oblivion? I know we'll be indebted and in trouble. Versus on the other side, is the planet in dire trouble from climate change? Unproven. So I'll take the proven one over the unproven one right off the bat. And going in debt short term is not the answer. But that's only part of that interview. I mean, he actually gave an in-depth interview, and everything about his interview is just hypocritical and contradictions, right? He's still contradicting himself because he was asked very specifically, will you reduce, you cut back the carbon tax for Atlantic Canada? Why not for Alberta? And then same thing. Now he's doing mental gymnastics on that one. In there, he's all he kept saying over and over is, we're giving Eastern Canadians a chance to buy heat pumps to save money. And then he kept saying to save money, to save money, to save money. It's like, okay, so they're not buying heat pumps to reduce emissions and save the planet. They're buying heat pumps to save the money. Like when he's under stress, he speaks the truth. And when he's speaking the truth, he was borderline unhinged this afternoon. He looks like shit anyways, but
but he also has MPs coming out against him. He's got Andrew Furey, who says, I continue to stand up for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians against the federal carbon tax. He wrote an open letter to Trudeau saying, can you pause this? Can you not do this? Yep. This is not good for us. And of course, the Conservatives are using this as jet fuel for their own campaigns.
And even if I agreed with the carbon tax, and I don't, but even if I did, his plan was like, we're going to start at $15 a ton, 30, 45, 60, and go up to 150. Some people are saying you're currently at 60. Yeah, just pause it and resume it later on. You're at, you're already doing some good. You don't need a perfect solution. He's stubborn. This is his hill to die on. And I'm glad it's his hill to die on. I mean,
because he'll finally die on it.
Yeah, he'll
It'll be
die on
over
it. And Pierre's got something that, Pierre needs no other slogan right now other than axe the tax. So that's great. Danielle left the meeting. She flew back up to the legislature in Edmonton, and then she had a little press conference, and she pointed out, she says that she asked Trudeau to fire Guilbeault. God, wishful thinking. And Trudeau said, no, I'm not firing Guilbeault. And Danielle said it politely. She said, you have a minister with whom I don't have a good relationship, and if you were to fire him or reappoint him, perhaps we could reset that portfolio. And Trudeau's saying no. Now, at the same time, I like most of what Danielle's saying, but I still think she's too soft, man. Like, you're playing their game, Danielle, and just why are you constantly on the defensive? Like, go on a hard offense, go on a hard offense.
Yeah, it would be good to see. I mean, people online are obviously going on a hard offense, and anytime Trudeau says something that they don't agree with, obviously it makes the rounds. Here's another clip from that particular press conference. People should expect governments to obey the law, Trudeau says.
We are a country of laws. We're a country of rules and responsibilities. And it's evolved over 150 plus years to be this extraordinarily successful country we have. And we expect people to obey the law. That's what governments expect of their citizens. That's what citizens should expect of their governments.
And see, like, I mean, I'd love to interview him live, like, because I think quickly on my feet, and you do too. Like, as soon as he says that, I go, okay, so you just admitted it's a fantastic country with 150 years of evolution. So what does a country like ours that's so fantastic after 150 years need? Just a little nudge forward, a little bit of progress. Once in a while, when you progress and you do something that doesn't quite work, you step it back. But what does he keep telling us? We need a great reset. So which one is it? Like, do we need a great reset, or do we just need to fix it? I mean, like, yeah, he's unraveling right now. He's grasping at everything, right? I mean, that's a new narrative for him. We're in a great. What did he say last week? Or well, he was on an interview in Quebec. That's what it was. He was being interviewed in Quebec, where they're asking him, like, are you're totally unpopular. Why are you still going to run? And he's like, well, everybody's saying the country's broken, and I can't just stand there and accept that the country's broken. I need to fix it. I'm like, A, you broke it. B, suddenly now you're actually de facto admitting that it's broken. But then on this clip here, he's saying, no, it's not broken. So he's all over the place. He's done. I mean, God, in the polls, he's back into the Conservatives are back in super majority territory, like 226 seats at least. And that's the other thing that happened this week, right? How many MPs? We had one more Canadian MP not resign, but say they're not going to run in the next election. So liberal MPs are seeing the writing on the wall, not just liberal MPs. Did you see the story about the liberal senator who decided to, for viewers? Yeah. Okay. Man, you're quick. You're like a producer. I know you got a producer in the background. You're very quick at this these days.
Yeah. Okay. So
you're anticipating.
This is actually, I'm anticipating what you might bring up because, Andy Lee, special rebel rapporteur, brought this one up. Why was a former senator working with GC Strategies while he was active in the Senate and hasn't said a word about his involvement with the company at the center of the ArriveCan scandal? So Vern White is resigning from the Senate, moving to Finland. This is crazy.
This is conflict of interest to start with, undisclosed conflict of interest for years. This is, let's go even further. I mean, this is gross patronage, right? This guy used to be like an RCMP commissioner or something like that. Then he gets this cushy appointment as a senator. And not just happy to make a shit ton of money and have you can be senator until you're 75 and you're going to get this massive, this guy's got an RCMP pension, a Senate pension, major expense accounts, patronage appointments, and he's stuffing his pockets like you can't imagine with this scandal. And now he just ups and says, you know what? I was thinking of not running until the end of my term, and I'm going to resign quietly and move to Finland.
Is Finland outside of the outside of?
Do we not have an extradition?
Yeah, that's
treaty
what I
with
was
Finland?
thinking.
Obviously not. Yeah, I'm thinking perhaps not.
I mean, how obvious are these people going to get? I know I keep laughing. I mean, just like, what do you do other than laugh?
You and
about
I are
this?
laughing at this. I told you when we just got onto when we did our pre-call this morning. The Gong Show never ends. Like I was gone to Mexico for a week.
Only a
Thank
week,
God.
by the way. Only a week.
Yeah, only a week. I disconnect. I'm on the beach. There's no Wi-Fi. Everybody's like, "Where's Marty?" Marty comes back, and I don't even know where to turn. Like every story that I turn to is just like the story of the lobster 2 weeks ago. That's nothing. Now I got Chrystia Freeland, who, well, here's the craziest story I've seen this week. The Supreme Court of Canada.
Before you move on, because
Yeah.
we're on this GC strategies thing, and they testified. The lead guy in GC strategies, he testified just today, and there's some doozy clips of this. I mean, it's so.
Play some of those because I was
It's
gone today. I was
obnoxious.
outside the
It's
house.
absolutely
This guy's
obnoxious.
evil.
So this is from
That guy's
Larry
evil.
Brock on Twitter, and this guy, what's his name?
That guy's evil.
Kristen. I'm drawing a blank on his name. It'll come up here. But he was at this committee. He was subpoenaed to come. You know, if he didn't show, he was gonna go to the sergeant at arms was gonna have to go get him. But he had this to say.
I think our work was done very well. I feel like the application was a success. I believe it was 260. I believe the application was a success. We had 260 million times the app was open.
A success. You're saying that your application was a success. You're serious now, right?
I think it did exactly what it was supposed to.
He did what he was supposed to. All right, for this guy.
Oh,
holy cow!
Yeah. This is the guy who was arguing, 2 months ago. Was like, I never
Christian
met the Prime
Firth.
Minister
Sorry,
at-
that's his name.
Yeah, I never met the Prime Minister at his cottage. And he's like, well, you said chalet. He's like, oh, chalet. Yeah, chalet is not a cottage. Yes, I met him at his chalet. Like this guy is, he's a slimy liar who's made millions and millions.
Well, and they get into that. They get into that. It's just how many millions. I think it's just over $8 million personally he made from this. But here's another clip asking what GC and the GC strategy stands for.
What does the GC and GC strategy stand for?
Sorry?
What does the GC?
Just Government of Canada. Just Government of Canada.
Okay, Government of Canada strategies is the full
You said GC strategy stands for Government of Canada strategies. Don't you think that's misleading?
Not really. We didn't think so in 2015.
It's an oxymoron.
Well, it's a bit like the Federal Reserve, right, in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a private bank, and
so that's
this is one of these
interesting because
things.
he's even starting to get hard questions from liberals because now you actually have some people who can't, if you're on that committee. I mean, there was that lady, that MP from Mississauga, still tried to block it last week, but there are MPs now that know that you can't hide. If you're going to committee, you got to ask a question, and you got to start being concerned, because I think some of these MPs are in what I call self-preservation mode, because so much of this is coming out. I mean, the Auditor General this week, I think, made some pretty bold statements, and people, and she's calling on the RCMP to investigate, which is another joke, right? Did you see those clips? Like, the RCMP got called and they asked, like, did you interview any of these people? And they rhymed off like 8 or 9 principles. And the RCMP just sits there and goes, no, we did not interview those people. It's like they'll do a more detailed background check on me when I'm applying for a gun permit than they would on the guy who just blew $50 million. Like,
it's outrageous. It's outrageous. And then this news they broke today. It was this from National Post. Auditor General's office discovered 3 of its own employees in the Governor General's office earning side money off of undisclosed government contracts.
Or not the Governor General, the Auditor General's. Yeah, I'm sure in the Governor. Yeah,
the Auditor General's office discovered this. This is crazy. Right under her nose. And they're embezzling money. I mean, at what point do you not call this just embezzlement? This is embezzlement if you're the ones who are trusted to
It's
oversee
it's
this.
embezzlement, it's fraud, it's crime. I mean, it's like the people who work for the Canada Revenue Agency who got caught collecting CERB and got a slap on the wrist or whatever. 60 of them got fired. Like 60? Like you should be firing thousands of people. The Auditor General should be, and believe me, I mean, whatever happened to the buck stops here, right? Like this whole shit rolls downhill. Like at what point does the Auditor General not step down? I've been asking that with the Canada Revenue Agency, like Larry Robinson or whatever the hell his name is, like the director of the Canada Revenue Agency is like, oh yeah, it's terrible. We had 1,000 employees that abused the CERB program. I'm like, dude, you're fucking gone. Sorry to swear there, but nobody's ever held accountable. Like nobody.
No, nobody's ever held accountable. And it's funny because like I put out a video today saying it's these two are, all the problems in Canada, you can hold on these two. And it was a picture of Justin and Christia. Well, they're the ones at the helm. And yeah, of course, people are, everyone in the comments, it's not just them, there's everybody. I'm like, but they're the ones at the helm. So the responsibility falls on them. That's where it is. And, with the Auditor General's office, it falls on the Auditor General to make sure that none of this stuff is happening. And of course, yeah, even the biggest watchdogs of the government, contracting isn't immune from employees breaking the code of conduct and potentially the law. Now, scrolling down here, the firings, so they were fired, which occurred between September and December last year, came to light as questions swirl about a federal public servant's companies was able to obtain nearly $8 million in contract work on the ArriveCan app. And it really is spiraling out of control. We're starting to see the how loosey-goosey they've been with the coffers of all this money that's been coming into the government. They see Trudeau's government just going, yeah, spend it all you want, you throw it out there, just get it spent. It's not about getting stuff done, it's about getting it spent. And that just leads to more and more corruption. People are going to see that and go, well, I'm going to get a piece of this pie.
Yeah, at this point that's what it's becoming. Back to the Auditor General, like people will say, oh, as a senior person in government or in a private organization, you can't know everything that's going on. It's like, I know. Trust me, I've been in those roles, but that's why we have other controls in place. That's why you have to surround yourself with people, and that and there's steps in place. And then beyond that, if it's too big that you can't know what's going on, then that's another sign. Maybe you should be smaller. So our governments are becoming too big. I mean, this is a constant excuse that we constantly hear. Government's too big. I'm the defense minister. I can't quit because I don't know everything that's going on. It's like, the government's too big. You said the right thing. The government's too freaking big. I mean, God, like appropriation committees, I don't even want to know the amount of money that's being,
Well, okay, so I want you hold that thought there. I actually use this.
Let me hold it.
I use this quote. This is a quote from Alexander Fraser Tyler that I recently used because a friend of mine, we were talking in a private conversation about this, and the quote goes, "A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist if until the voters discover they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment, the majority always votes for the candidate promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest civilizations has been 200 years. These nations have progressed through this sequence from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from great courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependence, from dependence back into bondage." And I hope we can skip some of these steps because we've been through this. We've been through this before, but we need to get rid of this largesse and go back to liberty, or else we're going to have to go through this whole cycle again. And it's
discouraging. No, we had we've talked about this a few months ago. It is discouraging. You'd think that we would have learned from lessons from history, and God, some of the things that repeat themselves. I mean, the the debauchery that we're seeing in society, some of the things that are being promoted, the emasculate or the whatever demasculination of men. I mean, I talked about that today. Like, yeah, no. Let's refocus us, Clyde. Let's bring us back somehow.
Yeah, it's awful, but so okay. So this is the thing that seems to be, this was Alexander Fraser Tyler remarking on this in his time. Now we've come a long way, and we've seen nations get.
What time was he? That was this sort of like 1870s?
Yeah,
something like
that's
that?
what I'm thinking, around that era.
Yeah.
So he noted on that based on what was contemporary at the time, but we've noticed in our lifetimes, countries go through this in more of a rapid pace, and they've gone through this. We've seen what's happened to even Vietnam, for example. In our lifetime, they went communist. It didn't work out, and they now they're back into fighting for liberty, but it's getting into markets, and that's a good thing, and we can see that happening in other places in the world. Hopefully we'll see Venezuela bounce back. We're watching Argentina now come right out of that, and they're moving towards liberty, and that's a really that's a very hopeful thing to see in society now, because then, especially with communication as we have it now, we're not so like far distant colonies of each other anymore. We see each other in real time, and we can see what's going on. And they're running an experiment to say this largely socialist country that went that way in the 1940s and has been on a downward spiral ever since, getting bigger and bigger in the size of government and more impoverished and more corruption. Can they turn that around? And can they turn that around in a hurry? Because if they can, this is like a perfect example to give to the rest of the world. So, there's a lot riding on Argentina right now.
God, now you're reminding me that I should, I've been critical of Danielle Smith, and now you're reminding me I need to continue to be critical. I mean, like, our government's too big, and I thought I had hopes that she would start immediately reducing the size of our government. So, yeah,
it can be done.
Oh, it can be done. It's been done many times, and in fact, I argue that it can be done, and that the government is too big, and by definition, by being too big, becomes inefficient. I mean, that happens to organizations. It happens to organisms. Like people say the dinosaurs got wiped out by whatever asteroids, but even organisms that get too big require too much energy to maintain themselves. They can't grow. They can only grow so big, and then they die off. So, a great white shark dies because it can no longer feed itself. At some point, it becomes too big. So, there's parallels in nature. Yeah. So our government is too big and inefficient, and we could actually go back. I'm convinced we could shrink all our governments by 10% in this country and not even sacrifice one iota on services, and in fact make them more efficient and better. So,
well,
did you see
what it is it's the hangover, right? They don't want the hangover of big government, because big government's the party, and the next day when you have to cut and cut and cut, people are gonna have a hangover, and it's gonna hurt for a minute. It's not gonna hurt forever, but it's gonna hurt for a minute for a lot of people that got jobs in the government. And if those people lose those jobs, they'll be freed up to do other things in the economy. But yeah, it'll hurt in the immediate. But that's the Band-Aid rip that needs to happen. That's the sober, sober Sunday. That's what we need here in this country.
Yeah, no, it's we're in an interesting time. We keep saying it. I mean, so the Auditor General, that's something that's fun to watch. They got to watch closely. Let's bring it back to something positive. Yeah, there's a lot of negative going on, but there's also a shit ton of really positive stuff, right? I mean, this anti-woke movement is gaining traction. The conference you guys are going to have in Victoria next month, or in a few months from now, June, that freedom conference, and we see it all the time. Donald Trump is regaining traction, and people are waking up. People are slowly waking up. I mean, there's all these weird court cases that are surfacing, and we're winning victories. It was Coots, Tamara and Chris Barber are back in Ottawa, and I have a feeling that's going to turn out good for them. Detective Gruss, that lady who was bold, that detective in Ottawa, the whole Ottawa police thing, man. We could do a whole show on Ottawa police. Like, it's unraveling in Ottawa. And I actually want to jump on a plane and go to Ottawa. I think I need an excuse to go and visit Ottawa just for a week and go, like, we should go do a week-long show out of Ottawa, because we'd have some great collaborations with a whole bunch of people. And
I'm sure we would. Yeah, I'm sure we would.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
okay, so good news. Good news
yeah.
that's coming out of the Western world. Britain ostensibly banning puberty blockers. That's the news that came out of Britain just yesterday. I've got a clip here.
Let's just bring you a bit of breaking news, which may be of interest to some of you. It's about puberty blockers. Now, these are drugs that are used to delay the changes of puberty in transgender youngsters. In terms of how they are prescribed by the NHS, there has been a lot of controversy over the last few years about this. At the moment, they are only prescribed to children attending gender identity services as part of clinical research, and they are not routinely offered to children at gender identity clinics, but they are still offered. Well, the government, NHS England, has just confirmed that children will no longer be prescribed puberty blockers at gender identity clinics. This is coming from NHS England. It just broke in the last few moments.
And that's obviously good news. And this is a trend that's been happening across Europe. The Scandinavian countries have said, no, it's not. We're not doing this anymore. Yeah. And they were the first to adopt it as well. So they were some of the first to bring it on, and they're now some of the first to get rid of it and correct this. And, at some point, science does prevail. And, scientific method, it's not a treatment that's working for people. It's not the right way to go about this. And they're saying, no, it's doing more damage. So we're gonna cut that and say no. And so essentially at the NHS level, they've said, so there's the National Health Service in England. That's a national health service, not like Canada where it's like provincial. So if it happened here, it would be provincial things. But there could be a federal ban on these things. I mean, this is not sure. You can't rule that one out as well.
No, and like we touched on briefly, when we're talking about Trudeau and the country being 150 years old and progressing forward, that's how everything should progress forward, right? So, I mean, maybe there is something legitimate to trans people or whatever. There is, I'll say. Okay, so
yeah, obviously. And
there's obviously something.
I've stated this several times in videos that adults, if they go to a therapist and it seems to be the only thing that will work for them, I mean, I'm not gonna get in somebody else's life. That's their business.
No. So there's something to it. Humans are not all comfortable in their bodies, and there's whatever. Mm-hmm. And so fine, let's explore that and let's move forward. And so if you got one nation that's trying it slowly, why not have other nations go, okay, let's step back and let's watch what happens here. But, we're in a world where everybody rushes forward. We don't experiment. We don't do anything proper. I mean, what are we currently doing now that we're going to grossly regret in a couple in years from now? Because I know we've done things in the past that, like, I give the example, right? I always tell people, remember, you hate residential schools. Well, residential schools was somebody's brainchild in the 1890s or 1960, whatever year, and that was considered progressive at the time. Mm-hmm. And 50 years later, we go, ooh, that was a bad idea. Pros and cons, whatever. So what are we currently doing right now that we will hugely regret? I mean, I'm more, puberty blockers, I'm not completely connected to that. I worry, for instance, on the ease of providing suicide to people, like medically assisted suicide. What's that going to do? Are we going to regret that years from now? Social progress in particular, I think needs to move forward well, that's why I'm a conservative, right? I mean, I guess I'm stating the obvious. As a social conservative, I see value in moving forward, but I want to move forward in a cautious, controlled way.
Well, we're gonna look back at this time, and we're gonna shake our heads, and we're gonna look at our scientific view of the world as we now look at the barber surgeons of years before bloodletting for the common cold. This is a first reading of a Supreme Court decision. Oh, I just remembered
you
this.
You found that one?
I just found it just now because you cued my memory of it. But this is the one where the Supreme Court decision says the word woman is confusing and unfortunate. A decision on a sexual assault case implied that the complainant should be properly known as a person with a vagina. that's where we're at now. That's where we're at. Like you're reduced to your genitals at some point, and it's ridiculous. And I brought this up at work, and one of my colleagues says, "What's wrong with womb man? Like the root word of woman is a person with a womb. Like it's implied. You don't have to say person with vagina." It's again implied. We're gonna look back at this, and we're all gonna hopefully have a laugh.
I mean,
and
imagine
these
that,
decisions get reversed.
Like that's a Supreme Court justice making a pronouncement, a declaration. I mean, this is a person who's supposed to, like, I lose confidence when I see that, because these are the people that are supposed to interpret our Constitution.
Yeah.
Never mind this other stuff. Like, oh my God. Yeah, no, that's, and briefly speaking, I was in Mexico. My Spanish is not perfect, but I get by with Mexican, and I love to the Spanish, and I love to read the papers and things like that. You go to a second world country like Mexico, they don't worry about this shit, man. They don't worry about this shit. And that's the eye opener. Like, there are a lot of countries around the world that have moved on, that wokeism never took on. The Eastern Bloc countries, God, man, if you go to if you go to a Serbian man and you shared a story like that, he'd look at you and go like, "Oh God, we should invade Canada right away. They're right for the taking."
They're right for the taking, because they have
like,
tampons in the men's bathroom in the military.
We're like we have, and I tweeted about this today. Like, we are soft. We are soft. We are soft. And therefore, and people like, I'm going to be critical here. Like, people talk about freedom and things like that. And we've talked about this. Boy, it's one thing to talk, but it's one thing to have to act. People aren't willing to put themselves on the line. People aren't willing to accept discomfort. And then here in Canada, we love our big government, man. We love our big government. The moment I hear people talking about small government, but the moment they realize what small government means, that you might have to drive yourself to the hospital, or you might have to, you might have to put out your garbage only twice a week or every 2 weeks instead of every week. Ooh, well, let's go back to big government. So
I don't see it that way. I see it as if I want all those services, I'll pay for them. If I want somebody to pick up my garbage, I'm going to call a guy and pick up my garbage.
You and I are cut from a different cloth than most Canadians. That's what I'm saying. I think most Canadians have become soft. It's one of my conclusions, because I'm at a loss to explain some of the things that I've seen in the last couple of years,
Yeah, the whole concept of if the government won't do it, who will? But we also, it always was the argument that who's going to build the roads if the government does? And the Guilbeault said that he doesn't want to build the roads, and so they're reneging on their basic contract of what it is that they're supposed to do, or what it is they argue that they would that nobody would do if they weren't around.
Well, we used to build roads. I mean, we used to build roads before governments. Like we've, like I've said, there's the two extremes. There's zero government and there's total government. And society seems to be able to function on both. So we got to find that happy ground somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I don't want anarchy, but I don't need the government to do everything for me. But we're in the minority, because I see it all the time, man. People that get comfortable with things being done for them by either the government or corporations or whatnot, and then when you start to seriously talk about reducing and taking away some of those things, then there's pushback. So which I think is the pushback. I'm bringing it back to Alberta. I was critical again this morning of Danielle, of some of the things she's talking about, and I know she's getting pushback from. Well, she's got a new battle on her hands now. You saw. It happened before. It happened after I left, right? Naheed Nenshi threw his hat in the ring for the leadership of the NDP party in Alberta.
I didn't catch that. No.
Yeah. So that happened recently. So Nenshi was Calgary's mayor. So now he just threw his hat in the ring. So there's now. So Danielle has a potential real nemesis there, because Nenshi could win the NDP leadership, and the NDP could win another government in Alberta. I still think that's a
possibility.
Yeah.
And that's devastating if that were to occur. Now,
hey, can I bring up one quick really good news story? I'm looking at myself on your monitor, and I'm clean shaven. thanks to some of your viewers, because last time we talked, I said I was raising money for shaving my beard. I raised a full $1,100, and I was a little discouraged today. I did the chasing Trudeau around town. And I said, screw it, I'm going to go do something fun. I took that $1,100 and I went to the Cochrane Humane Society and met with a lovely lady there. Gave her $1,100, and then we had a little tour and we talked about how things are for the pets. So so thanks to some of your viewers who donated and some of my viewers.
So for people that don't know, you shave. You normally have a beard, and you shaved it off. And before you said, well, if I'm going to shave it off, I'm going to raise some money to shave it off first. And you did it for the Humane Society for pets. You made me aware of a phenomena that was happening during COVID that I didn't know was happening. People were giving up their pets because things were tough for them.
Like you said, don't let a good beard go to waste. So let's raise a few bucks. And at first it's like, do I do the normal charities? And then I thought, you know what? Most humans can actually defend themselves. And there's a lot of services in place for humans who are suffering under Trudeau. Let's be clear. But under Trudeau, there are other victims. There are quiet victims. There are pets. Yes, pets are suffering under Trudeau because inflation is out of control and people are bringing their pet or are abandoning their pets. The lady at the shelter, unfortunately, she'd been there. She's the director of the shelter. She's been there since 1998, and she says she's never seen it as bad as this in all her years there. They're actually turning down pets. So and their policy there is they don't put down pets if you or rescues when they have an animal. They'll keep that animal as long as necessary until that animal gets adopted. But right now she says they're full capacity is like 110 animals. I was like, oh my God, that's so sad. And it almost looks like a hospital there. They got a few pets in the halls with little crates and whatnot. So, and then I realized the $1,100 won't go very far. Like $1,100 is, it'll feed the 110 dogs that are there. She told me for something like 8 days. I'm like, that's fine. 8 days is 8 days.
Wow.
But,
that's not, that doesn't go very far at all.
So Trudeau's causing, I'm going to pick on Trudeau and Singh and politicians across this country. You guys are not helping us right now, man. Canadians are suffering and it's evident in so many places.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
I just wish they'd do their jobs, man. We shouldn't be like, I wish you and I could sit down more regularly or at least once in a while when we sat down, you and I could talk about something really cool, really sensible that happened. Right. But I don't see that many sensible stories. I'd love to debate a bill that's being introduced that, and really talk about the pros and cons of somebody proposing something, but everything's broken.
Well,
God,
you and I haven't had the chance to actually talk about a bill that was proposed after you left for your vacation, and that was Bill C-63 that came up in the time that you're gone. It's the online online harms bill, and this is a bill that's designed to protect. Well, it's purported to be protecting against children, people who want to have inappropriate photographs and videos of children, that kind of thing. But what's in this bill is what's really, really terrifying. Inside the bill, obviously they give all kinds of different things about what hate speech is, and they give their own summary of this bill. Now, I had a lawyer, Jeff Rath, on the show, and he wrote an article about it. He's got his thing. He's from Alberta. You'd really like
Jeff Rath of the it's his firm that's taken the government of Alberta to court over mandates and other things. That's a big firm. Yeah, okay.
That's right. He called me up and he said, Clyde, this bill, I read it, and we got to talk about this. This is the worst piece of legislation ever to be introduced in Canadian history. This is the most egregious bill that's basically going to allow them carte blanche to go after anybody for anything that they've ever said. And
is this the one that this is the one where even Margaret Atwood this morning said this is bullshit, right?
Yeah, she said it's like 1984. One. It's crazy. This is
and she's an ultra liberal.
That's
she's
right.
the lady who wrote The Handmaid's Tales or whatever. I mean, okay, yeah. So if you're pissing off academics and artists, finally, actually, that's a group that to me should have been screaming at the liberals long ago, man. I still don't understand why academics, artists, musicians haven't been more critical of, like, sure, you know, they're paying money to the CBC and stuff like that, but academics, man, like academics get tenure.
Yes.
And the reason we give tenure to academics is so they can speak out, you know, like Peterson's doing it. And yeah, he's taking a beating. He's taking it on the chin, but he's doing it. And so we need more. So, okay, good. Right. That's a tipping point then. So if Margaret Atwood thinks this is bad, maybe a few people will wake up and go, this is
Marty,
bad.
have a listen to this. This is the creation of a Digital Safety Commission of Canada. This is in the bill. The Online Harms Act would see the creation of a new Digital Safety Commission of Canada to administer the framework and enhance the online safety in Canada. A new Digital Safety Commission would enforce legislative and regulatory obligations and hold online services accountable for their responsibilities through auditing for compliance, issuing compliance orders, and penalizing services that fail to comply. So essentially going away from Section 230 of the Digital Copyright or Millennial Copyright Act, granting these platforms platform status instead of publisher status.
Well, now it's starting to make sense, right? I mean, earlier we're talking about the decline of Western society, and you want to control the narrative and everything else. So Trudeau comes out with Bill C-21, or not C-21. Which one was the
C-11?
The Google?
And then,
C-11.
that was C-18, the one that went after Google.
C-18, and then built into C-18 is like, who's going to regulate C-18? Oh, the CRTC can do it. So now this piles up on top of that. This is the CRTC on steroids, on mega steroids.
Go into the actual bill, and this is where it gets scary.
Yeah.
So the content that foments hatred, this is a definition they have. So they basically, you know, anything that can foment hatred against a person or vilify an individual group or individuals on the basis of such a prohibited ground. Now, what can be the punishment of some of this stuff? It gets really crazy. Hold on. They go into at one point in this bill to talk about what the punishments could be for this, and at the Attorney General's request, if they believe that somebody may say something in the future that could be harmful on the internet, they could put them under house arrest and even implement that they wear ankle bracelets.
Dude, we're getting into Minority Report territory. Remember that movie? Like, I mean, this is the kind of bill where if you and I were to talk critically about, I don't know, a Black Lives Matter protest last weekend, we could be slapped for being critical of a group, right? You can't even be critical of another group. That's the kind of dangerous bill. You need to go watch this. It all ties in. You need to go watch Jordan Peterson's 5-minute speech to Congress. I think it was middle of last week. It's just out, but Peterson got invited by Congress because the U.S. Congress is fighting these kinds of demons too, and Peterson went and warned them about these specifically about what's happening in Canada. He gave examples of the social credit scores and what's happening in China. Actually, Peterson was very critical of my peers, my engineers. He was critical of engineers that are making these technologies available. Peterson was basically critical of engineers that are allowing closed circuit cameras and other things. I mean, some of the technology is really scary. Apparently in China, if it's in China, I'm sure it's everywhere else, but apparently you can't even just hiding your face is not enough.
No.
They can detect your body, your gait. They can detect the way you walk. They can do a quick scan of your body and the way you walk and a few other things, and then identify you without even seeing your face.
Yeah.
God. Woo. Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. Yeah. Okay, I'm going back to Mexico. See you later.
Well, enjoy that tropical place, because you got to watch what tropical place you might want to go to. But that being said, you
don't want to go to Haiti. Apparently there's cannibals there.
Well, apparently it's a great place. I keep hearing that it's a great place. I got all these people in America telling me Haiti is great already. This was a thing that got dug up because of...
Man, you anticipated me brilliantly on this one. Wow.
So, yeah, of course, this was the clip from Conan O'Brien.
Version of Make America Great Again hats. It's a hat that says Haiti is great already. We offered it to them and they were quite happy to have it. People really like the slogan. in Haiti.
Boy, this is
They like it so much so that Omaze.com is now exclusively offering this Haiti is great already t-shirt version.
So this is real. This is real. And I've got a clip because, I mean, this is now vindicating Trump and what he had to say, or what he allegedly, purportedly said.
And you take a look at the people of Haiti. I was at a little Haiti the other day in Florida, and I want to tell you, they hate the Clintons, because what's happened in Haiti with the Clinton Foundation is a disgrace. And you know it, and they know it, and everybody knows it.
And everybody knows it. Of course, this is the scenes in Haiti. It is not good. It's not good. The reports are it's been taken over by gangs, and they've lost control of everything. Essentially, 80% of the main cities in Haiti they've lost control. They lost control of the prisons. The prisoners have all been released, and the main bad guy, his name is Barbecue. That's his nickname. And he's known as Barbecue because he's known to eat his victims. This is
now. Didn't Canada donate money to Haiti like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and did it under some weird program? Like, didn't we donate money to help, I don't know, re-educate or do something? Find it and we'll talk about it online later.
It has something to do with culinary skills. I don't
like something super stupid like that. And again, it's another, we're throwing out numbers that mean nothing now. It's like, here's 125 million bucks for Haiti. I mean, Haiti, God, we're gonna go on all night long, man. We could stay here till 3 o'clock, because didn't one of our 3 Coast Guard vessels come back from an exercise down in the Caribbean intercepting drugs? I made a statement about that.
I didn't
right?
know.
I mean, we barely,
no, I don't know about that.
We barely have a navy, and instead of patrolling our own waters, we send them down to the Caribbean to participate in exercises, and they're all happy. It's like, ooh, we intercepted like 500 tons of freaking drugs. I'm like, yeah.
What about all the stuff coming in our country
that I can buy for? I can buy drugs in Vancouver, or I can get them for free at the drop-in center or whatever. Like, you guys are like, the priorities are all messed up, man. Completely messed up.
Well, I did a story just this past week about a drug bust that the RCMP did, and it was all safe supply stuff that the government supplied. And it's been intercepted.
Are they kind of stamped, or they can identify it?
Oh yeah, they can identify it.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, they can identify it, and it's just being rerouted because a lot of the criminals don't want that, and it's ending up as street drugs.
It's Government of British Columbia drugs issued as a not for resale. Like you know what I mean? Yeah,
bootlegging,
we're getting at
counterfeits,
that point. Yeah, we're getting at that point, not for resale, because they're improperly labeled.
Hey, we're beyond the pale on this one. We need to change course. We need to change course in a hurry.
The asteroid needs to come fast, man. Like
before we end this, predictions. Do you think now still that there's going to be a spring election, or do you think Trudeau and the rest of them that are all guaranteed to lose their seats in the next election are going to just ride it out until
they're riding it out? It's if there was going to be a writ dropped or something, it had to be this month. I think they're going to ride it out. Canadians are we're entering our prime distraction period. I mean, summer's right around the corner. I already know people talking about the lake and this and that. So the Liberals get carte blanche for the next 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And then hopefully something else will distract come October. I mean, yeah, it's discouraging. It's very discouraging. And there's no good news on the horizon. I mean, let's talk about other predictions. Inflation comes out next week, right, on the 16th.
Mm-hmm.
My prediction is inflation has to go back up. If it goes back down, I'll have to dig into it, because
it's going to be flubbing of the CPI numbers. That's exactly what my suspicion is. The interest rates just last week, they stayed up, and they stayed at 5%. They didn't go down. They didn't go up. They just stayed where they were at. So that's another thing that's going to just prolong the inevitable. We're just kind of we're in economic purgatory for the next foreseeable future.
Let's end it on one quick good news, though. A couple of other, we could. You're doing good work, right? And independent journalists are doing good work, and it's spreading, right? So one of the big wins you had was when we brought on Darshan, and you talked to Darshan, and I think
fantastic.
as a result of having Darshan, I think the government adjusted a little bit of or we gave him exposure, and then his work got out, and the government adjusted the whatever you call it, the quotas for foreign students. And I think you had something to do with Northern Perspective getting a nice big boost this week on at committee.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I got to show this clip now. I got to find it because that was fantastic.
So let's end on a positive thing, folks.
We'll end on that note.
Us in independent journalism and commentators and you guys listening to us, we do eventually have an impact. I've always said it, man. It takes like 2-3% of the population constantly spreading the truth, and we'll have an impact.
Yeah, here's the clip here. Vesper Digital on Twitter posting this first, showing that they got a shout out at the standing committee for the ArriveCan app.
Welcome to meeting number 108 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, fondly known as the Mighty OGO. Thank you to Northern Perspectives for that shout out as well for the Mighty OGO. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083C.
That is so awesome. That's great. And good on them. For anybody who doesn't know who Northern Perspective is yet at this point, go over and subscribe to their YouTube channel. I'll leave a link in the description of this video so you can have that. This is obviously their Twitter, but their YouTube channel is fantastic, and they do a bang up job. And they're live as we're recording this right now. So as soon as we're done this, I'm gonna go join that live stream. But yeah, go check them out because they're doing fantastic work. Enough that they're getting shout outs by committee members. This is amazing.
Yep, totally. So our community is working, right? This is why you and I meet, and I love coming here, and then we got to help each other out. Before at the start of the show, before we went live, you and I were talking a little bit about the infighting. We got to stop this infighting, and well, not the infighting. Well, there's an infighting, and then there is something, like don't let, if you're a small time journalist or a YouTuber or personality, don't let the small amount of fame get to your heads. Like, stay grounded, folks. Stay grounded. I mean,
keep your day job, perhaps.
Yeah. Keep your day job. So cool. Yeah. Hey, great show, man. Like, I didn't know where we were going to go, but yeah.
It went all over the place. We're almost at an hour,
Totally.
so let's cut it now. Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter, and Marty Up North on YouTube. Engage with me on Twitter, folks. I love hearing from everybody, and I try to respond. Clyde always says that, God, I tweet a lot. Yeah, because I got nothing else to do, especially this time of year. Like, I just so the folks know, I love the outdoors, but March, April, counterintuitively, are some of the most dangerous months of the year for the outdoor activity. When the snow starts to melt in the mountains and the snowpack becomes very unpredictable, I stay away from it. Avalanches are just a dangerous time. So between now and say early May, Marty's stuck on Twitter.
So go follow the link in the description down below. You'll see all the tweets. It'll keep you entertained all day long. And Marty, we'll see you again next week with a beard, correct?
I promised my wife I'll keep it off for at least. I'll try and keep it off for the summer. I'll try. We'll see how it goes. Shaving's a pain, man. It's a pain in the ass.
I know. That's why. Yeah. It's a thing.
All right, bud. Cool.
And for everybody, I'll be in Japan as well, starting next week. We'll be probably recording this on Tuesday. It might go out Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure yet, but we'll figure something out for the 3 weeks that I'll be in Japan. So there'll be a kind of a weird schedule. So just
our segment will be shorter, but we might have more frequent, shorter segments. Right, is what we'll probably do instead of a long segment.
Yeah, that might be what happens. All right, we'll figure it out. And everybody, thanks for joining.
Good night, folks.